Hello, hello! My name is Bisa, and today we're going to talk about... Whoa. Okay, so this is basically the worst way to start a YouTube video nowadays, but thank you all so much for the incredible reception on the first video. I've been doing this whole YouTube thing on and off for over 10 years now, and nothing has ever hit quite like this. But before I let the numbers get to my head, let's take a look at some of the comments, because there were a lot of interesting questions that I've already spent a lot of time thinking about before, and will answer as the time comes. Kian Ang asked, "Nice, can you also add diagonal movement and following Pokemon? Oh, and also, when flying, will you control in the sky just like Oras?" Now, my response to this was that I'm not aware of diagonal movement in any other Gen 3 ROM hacks, and wow, was I proven wrong quickly after a modicum of research. While I still don't know of any ROM hacks that actually utilize it, probably due to a lack of sprites present for it in the base game, diagonal movement is actually just a native Gen 3 feature that goes completely unused. As for following Pokemon, this is 100% something I want to implement, and soaring, well, let's just say we'll talk about that at some other point. Now, like I said, there are a lot of other great comments, but they're mostly things I want to talk about later on in this series. I have got one more, however, that will allow me to explain a lot of important things about this hack. Logan W asked, "Great video! As someone who also does a lot of modding stuff, I always enjoy watching videos of other experiences. Just one question though, are you using the Emerald decomp or binary hacking? A lot of the code changes sound more like decomp stuff, but I usually associate mapping with binary hacking." Now, for those who only understood half of the words of that question, there are three main ways to make a Pokemon fan game. 1. Just make a fan game. That is to say, don't bind yourself to real Pokemon software and make a game from the ground up in an engine of your choice. Some of the most popular fan games ever, like Pokemon Uranium or Pokemon Infinite Fusion, belong to this group, with these cases using Game Maker, as far as I am aware. Number 2, binary hacking. This is the classic original mode of ROM hacking, taking a preferably self-dumped ROM of a Pokemon game and editing its binary code, usually in hexadecimal for the sake of human readability, to make changes to the game. This is obviously an absurd amount of work, so quickly a ton of tools popped up to make this process much more intuitive and easier, such as the legendary Advanced Map, Pokemon Game Editor, and Extreme Script Editor. And number 3, decomp hacking. This is the most modern way of ROM hacking, being only a couple of years old, spearheaded by the Pokemon Reverse Engineering team, or PRET for short, who have been reverse engineering the source codes for many Pokemon games' engines that will compile into a working ROM. Decompilation is an incredibly hard and arduous task, and if you want to know more about the challenges of this kind of reverse engineering, then I highly recommend Matt KC's video on his endeavor to decompile Lego Island. Links are in the info card. While you can technically do everything you can do with the decomp with binary hacking as well, since the end product of both is just a valid ROM, having access to the actual code of the game is vastly more useful when there is no binary editing tool made for doing something, making decomp hacking by far the most flexible and powerful mode of ROM hacking, as you can get down to the metal and do basically anything with the games that you like without risking breaking the rest of the ROM. With everyone caught up on the topic, let me answer your question, Logan. You're correct. For the time being, Pokémon Corundum is a binary hack. While I can read basic object-oriented code, I'm no programmer, and the tools for decomp hacking aren't that mature yet. And while I have been learning, I'm just not quite there yet. As for additional features, Pokémon Emerald's built-in scripting language is surprisingly powerful, and allows you to do a ton of really wild stuff. Really, the original game's usage of it is kinda laughable, and any sort of complexity is mostly reserved for one-off gimmicks. That being said, should I ever run into a feature I cannot implement this way, then yes. I might switch to decomp hacking, which might end up being a lot of work, but at least at that point I'll have a lot of the game laid out in front of me and ready for re-implementation. But talk about layouts being ready for re-implementation, let's not waste any more time and get into today's mapping time-lapse for Route 101. Now, another very common concern among the comments was that by bloating the size of Hoenn's maps, I might run the risk of simply wasting the player's time, rather than achieving the goal of more deeply immersing them in an expanded version of the region. While those concerns are absolutely valid, I have already thought about this a lot, from adding more interactability to maps, over entirely new locations to explore, and the world visibly changing as the player progresses through the game. A key part to why I think Hoenn is such an amazing region is because I feel it's one of the most explorable, and this really is the main part I want to emphasize with this ROM hack. That being said, little of this matters in relation to Route 101. It is, by a long shot, the smallest first route in any 2D Pokemon game, with Route 1 being 37 by 23 tiles large, Route 29 being huge at 18 by 61 tiles, and Route 201, even when excluding Verity Lakefront, clocking in at a whopping 28 by 66 tiles. These maps also serve as a tutorial for the basic movement you will be doing for the majority of your playtime, all featuring an at least somewhat winding path that asks you to traverse multiple patches of tall grass in one direction, most likely introducing you to wild Pokemon battles, while making the way back to your starting town safe and quick, using one-way ledges to avoid the tall grass. While Route 101 adheres to all of this, I do believe that its size is just not enough, while also not needing to be as huge as 29 or 201, given it only connects Little Route to Oldale, and you will rarely come back here as both locations already do or will have alternative ways of accessing them even beyond flying. So I decided to raise its size from a paltry 20 by 20 tiles to a slightly more sturdy looking 36 by 30, which is a bit short of tripling its size and actually only 18 total tiles smaller than Route 29, although the closed circle structure makes it feel yet smaller when compared to the stretched long first route from Gold and Silver. All this extra space allowed me to add a new location with totally not a secret base, a little secret for the curious, and a ledge on the right side of the map, making the geography of the route a little more believable. It also allows me to spread out the tall grass a bit more, once more breaking up the very rigid structure of Game Freak's original maps. I didn't have too much of a recollection of this, so imagine my surprise when I went to check and found out that the only places this was done to even just some degree in the original games are Route 110 and Route 116. Now, there was a lot less to talk about with this map than there was in Little Route, and we're done here. So let's go and, once more, check it out in-game. And with that, welcome to Route 101. Now, there isn't too much to show here, as I already said in the time-lapse. This is a route with not too much to it. It's just a connection between two other places that have more popular connections. So this one, I'm just going to give you a quick walkthrough. You can see I did give myself running shoes since last time. And I did set the encounter rate to 0 for this route right now, just for the sake of showcase. Now this down here is what I mentioned. This is not a secret base. You can see there are no signposts. I'm mashing A right now. There's no signposts that says this is a secret base here. That's because this is one of the parts that I want to really change over the time of your playthrough, which is something that I mentioned. Breaking the language of the game's design like this, not quite sure if I want to do it or not. I think it would be fun that once you get secret power, that is when this tree changes and you're gonna be like, oh, okay, something's up here. That's kind of the idea, right? If you ever get back around to checking it out. And if you don't, then, well, once you hit post-game, this entire, area here is going to be completely different or whatever. I don't quite know yet what exactly I want to do here, but I just want this area down here to be one that really changes a lot over the course of your playthrough. Then over here we have the added ledge. I would love to put some berry trees, some early berry trees here, rather than over here on, what was it, Route 102? I think this is 102, right? Which I haven't changed yet, as you can see, along with Oldale. Yeah, I can't count. Don't worry about it. And there is the secret I mentioned that is not on this rock, but beyond this rock, for anyone who's adventurous to figure that one out. Yeah, I would love to put some berry trees up here. There's something feature-filled-ish in every quadrant of this map. Up here, I mean, you know, Oldale. Down here you have Little Root, and later on Professor Birch, when you've got your Pokedex filled, I think, is when he shows up. Over here, then in the bottom right, you have this ever-changing clearing, and up here you would have the berry trees. But I don't know where the data table is that contains all the preset berry trees, because remember, this is a binary hack, so those are things I have to figure out. So if anyone knows anything about that, you know, please let me know in the comments. Would be a great help, because I can't just take berry trees that are already somewhere else in the game, use the same ID again, because if I were to use the same ID here and someone were to pluck this tree, then that other tree would also be removed later on in the game. Or vice versa, if you don't pick this one and you pick the one later, then this one would be removed. You know, but that's all stuff I really want to figure out over the time of creating this. And, you know, most people might not put a lot of... like, they might not even think that highly or much about berry planting, but I think it was one of the coolest parts of Gen 3, and I really want to encourage doing it, and I want to keep it around. Another thing I want to make accessible is the berry blender, no, not berry blender, the berry powder minigame. But like I said, that's all for future me to figure out before I make any more mistakes saying things I shouldn't be saying. Thank you all so very much for watching. Again, it has been incredible to watch the first video pop off the way it has, and I really hope you all enjoy these these dev diaries going forward. So if you like this, hit the like button. If you didn't, you know what other button to hit. Subscribe if you want to see more. Call to action again. My name is Bisa. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.